Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. In this video I have a matchup between Rebecca and Queen. These are two leaders from set 4 Kingdoms of Intrigue, and on the left we have Fernando playing Rebecca, and on the right we have Ben playing Queen. This is an interesting matchup, and this match was recorded from a booster box tournament that we held recently. Fernando goes first here, and he uses leader ability right off the bat. Look at the top two cards of your deck and put one into your hand, and then trash the rest. So he does grab the Searcher Rebecca there. Then it goes into Ben's turn, and he puts up 2 Dawn and passes. So Rebecca's ability only works if you have 6 or less cards in hand. Fernando does decide to use the Rebecca Searcher. She searches the top 3 of your deck. You put 1 into your hand, and then you trash the rest. He grabs the Kairos there, and he passes turn. Not able to use leader ability on that turn because he has too many cards in hand. We'll see if Ben can play a character on this turn. He starts off by swinging 6 with leader, and Fernando does take that damage. And then for 3, he plays the blocker Doflamingo to rearrange the top 5 of his deck, and then he passes turn. So given the matchup, this will be a pretty grindy game, but both players play at a pretty good pace, so should be a good match. Fernando does play the Orlumbus for 4 Dawn. That will be an important piece to getting rid of Ben's board. Activate main once per turn, give up to one of your opponent's characters -4 to their cost, and then trash 2 cards from the top of your deck. Then KO one of your Dressrosa type characters, so he does get rid of the Searcher Rebecca, and then the Leo comes down, and on play you may rest 1 leader. If your leader has the Dressrosa type, you get to KO one of your opponent's characters with the cost of 1 or less, then trash 2 cards from the top of your deck. So Fernando already pulling off the combos, getting rid of the blocker Doflamingo on Ben's side. Ben starts his turn swinging 7 into Fernando, and he does take it. And he manages to bottom deck the Orlumbus with a 3000 Worlds. So on curve, the 7-drop Luffy comes down, and then Fernando passes turn. Luffy will be another important piece for Fernando, trying to deal with the board that Queen is trying to establish. Ben starts by swinging 5, and Fernando counters out, and he does drop the Katakuri on curve to put the Luffy at the bottom of Fernando's life. So that is ideal for Ben. We see the Corrida Coliseum come down for Fernando, and that's the stage card for Dressrosa. If your leader has a Dressrosa type, then your Dressrosa type characters can attack characters on the turn in which they are played. And just like Ben had an answer for Fernando's Luffy, Fernando has the Gum Gum Red Rock to get rid of the Katakuri from Ben's side to send it to the bottom of the deck. And then Fernando counts out his cards in order to use his leader ability. He does grab the Kong Gun there, and then he trashes the Leo. And then he passes turn. So we're going to see an 8k swing here from Ben to start his turn. And Fernando does take that. Then Ben plays the Doflamingo to rearrange his top 5, but he actually sends that to the bottom. And then for 4, he plays the Sanji. 2 blockers up for Ben here, and Fernando starts this turn out, dropping the 7-drop Luffy, so that's his second. Fernando deciding how much Don he wants to put under his Luffy here. He decides to attach 1 Don and swing into the Doflamingo blocker. And he is going to activate the 7-drop Luffy's ability, put 7 cards from your trash to the bottom of your deck to restand the Luffy. And he restands and swings an 8 into the Sanji. And that does get rid of that as well. And then for 2, Fernando plays the IDO, who is a blocker. And right away on Ben's turn, he knows what he's going to do. He's going to play the 9-drop Mihawk to bottom deck the Luffy and then swing 6. Fernando does counter that swing from the leader. So right now both players just having the answer to the other's board, and once again we do see a Gum Gum Red Rock from Fernando to bottom deck that Mihawk. And then Fernando once again counting out his hand and then searching with the leader ability. He does grab an Orlumbus there. Not able to play him though, he only has 3 Dawn left for this turn. And with no other real play, it looks like he just swings 5k with the Leo, and Ben does counter out. And we do see the Sasaki come down for Ben. It is usually a 2k counter, but on play you get to shuffle your cards into your deck and then you draw the same amount of cards that you had. Ben does swing into the Leo with his leader and it does get rid of that, and got 2 more blockers to play down the Sanji and the Brûlée. Fernando does play the Orlumbus that he searched out last turn. And he is actually going to use Orlumbus's ability to give the Sanji -4, getting rid of his IDO. And he plays the Kairos in order to pop that from the board. And then he uses leader ability, grabs the Sabo, adds that to hand. And no other plays, so he does pass with 2 Dawn up. So we'll see here if Ben was able to draw into any of his top end off of the Sasaki from the last turn. And it looks like he did, and we do see the Yamato come down, getting rid of the Orlumbus. On play, the Yamato is able to KO a character with a cost equal to the total of you and your opponent's life. So you would have been able to pop a 7 cost there. And Ben attaching 1 Dawn and swing 5k with the Sasaki. Fernando counters out and another 5k swing from the Queen leader, and Fernando counters out of that as well. And then Ben passes the turn. So we'll see if Fernando can answer that Yamato immediately. He starts off by using the leader ability, grabs the Kairos, and trashes the Kuzan. And we are going to see a Sabo come down. And he uses his ability to filter out his hand. And he's deciding what to discard here. He does discard an IDO blocker and a Sabo blocker. Fernando swings 5k into the Sasuke with his Kairos, and Ben does counter. And then we see another Kairos come down, and Fernando just uses his ability to trash a card, not getting rid of anything on the board, but he does attach a Dawn and swing immediately with the Kairos thanks to the Corrida Coliseum, and Ben decides to let the Sasuke go. Probably would have been better if Ben did just let the Sasuke go on the first hit. So we see a Sogeking come down for Ben, and it does bounce one of the Kairos back to Fernando's hand, and he gets to draw 2 and trash 2. We see a 5k swing from Queen, presumably into leader, and Fernando counters out with the Bartolomeo. And then we get 9k with Yamato, and Fernando does take that damage. And then we see a pound blocker come down for Ben, so that's a pretty good blocker. He will be able to, on KO, put a 3 cost to the bottom of Fernando's life, so it's a good way to remove the Kairos from play. We start off Fernando's turn. He plays your Lumbus, and then he pops the Kairos, but rests the Stadium for the effect. And then we see the Bastardo to get rid of the Yamato. So good combination there from Fernando. And we do get a leader ability from Fernando, grabbing the Rebecca Searcher. $5k to lead with the Kairos, and Ben takes the damage. Then we actually see the Sabo attack for 6k, and Ben takes that damage as well. And then the Searcher Rebecca comes down for Fernando, and he grabs the 7-drop Luffy, and then passes turn. So pretty good turn there for Fernando. I'm kind of surprised that Ben didn't use Pound there, but maybe he just wants to keep more blockers on board. So the 9-drop Mihawk comes down, and we'll see who Ben decides to bottom deck with Mihawk's on play ability, which is to bottom deck a 7 cost or less. And he does choose the Orlumbus, and we're going to see a 6k swing from leader here. Since he does have an 8 cost or higher, the ability is in play, so he gets to add a life from the top of his deck. And Fernando does counter the Queen swing with a 2k counter and Gats, and Ben swinging 6k with the Sogeking. Fernando does counter that as well, and then Ben passes turn. So Ben is forcing a lot of 2k counters out of Fernando's hand, and he does have a pretty good board established here, so we'll see what Fernando can do on this turn. He does start off using leader ability, and he decides to grab another 7-drop Luffy. Fernando's going to start off swinging 6k into the Sogeking, and Ben counters with a Pound. And we see another 6k come into the Sogeking from the Sabo, and Ben does decide to block with the Brûlée. And we do see the 7-drop Luffy come down for Fernando, and he attaches a Dawn. This is going to be an 8k swing right into the Sogeking. And Ben thinking about blocking here with the Pound. And he does send the Kairos to the bottom of Fernando's life. And Fernando is going to restand the Luffy and go into the Sogeking, and he is able to get rid of it that time, restanding the Luffy by sending 7 cards from his trash to the bottom of his deck. And Fernando did mention this in the deck profile, but it actually does make sense to arrange the cards that you send to the bottom of your deck because you are likely to see them when you play Rebecca. So we are going to see a massive swing from Ben's leader here, 10k into the Sabo, and that does get rid of that. And he actually just attaches 5 Don to the Mihawk as well and gets rid of the Luffy. So just a turn to clear board for Ben here. 14k into the 7k Luffy, and he does pass turn. Fernando quick to put down another 7-drop Luffy. And he's not taking any chances here, using the Kong gun on the Luffy to give him plus 6,000, swinging 13k into the Mihawk. And with 2 cards in hand, I don't think there's anything that Ben can do to stop that. Then we are going to see Fernando restand the Luffy with his ability and putting 7 more cards from trash to the bottom of deck, and he does decide not to swing with it, leaving it in the active position. And Ben not having a play here, he just swings 15k with lead, and Fernando does take it. And we're going to see another Kong gun come down. So Kong gun not only giving the Luffy plus 6,000, but also double attack. And yeah, he just swings 13k, and Ben doesn't have the counter, so he does take 2 life here from the Luffy. Then we see leader ability here from Fernando, grabbing the Searcher Rebecca. And he is going to restand the Luffy again. Oh, so we are actually going to see an 8k swing come from this Rebecca, so Fernando just testing Ben's hand, because he could possibly go for game here, but Ben does have the Gum Gum Rain, as well as the 2k counter. And then Fernando is going to swing again with the Luffy, and then Ben takes the damage. And wow, we do see the Yamato come down, giving Ben a chance in this game. And this is what Queen does, because he's able to pop the Rebecca, gain a life from the Yamato, because he has 1 or less life, and then he gets to use leader ability to gain another life, and then swing the 6k into Fernando. He does take it, and on his turn he does search with the Rebecca, grabs the Bartolomeo blocker. Then we see an Orlumbus come down, and that's going to get rid of the Rebecca, and it targets the Yamato to give it -4 to its cost, and we see a Bastardo. So perfect response on Fernando's end to deal with the Yamato. And we're going to see Fernando restand the Luffy. Fernando really has mastered this deck by being able to make sure that he always has the cards that he needs in trash for Luffy to restand or Kong Gun. And we just see an 8k swing here to Ben with the Luffy, and Ben does take it, thinking about a trigger, but just puts it to hand. And we do see the red rock come down from Ben's side, bottom decking the Luffy. And for 3 we see a Sasaki, and Ben once again shuffling his hand and drawing the same amount of cards. And we do have a misplay here, Ben forgetting that he doesn't have an 8 cost in play, so he tried to add life, but Fernando pointing out that he could just use the leader effect to draw the card instead. So no harm, no foul there. We see the Leo come down here for Fernando, likely just wanting to use our Lumbus's ability to get rid of this Sasaki. Yep, -4 with the Orlumbus, and then popping it with the Kairos and using the abilities. Then we see Rebecca's ability, adding the Bastardo to hand. So Fernando is pretty safe here. He does have 1 life up, and Queen does not typically run any rush cards, so he is just setting up his board to be able to close this game out. And he does drop the Sabo, and that's going to go a long way as well, being able to once again filter his hand. He trashes the Leo, and he trashes another Sabo, and he does pass turn. So we'll see if Ben does have another top end card that he can play. Doesn't look like it with the way he's separating his Dawn. He does red rock the Sabo, swings 5k to Fernando with lead, and he counters out, and then Ben drops the Sanji blocker. So we already know that Fernando has the Bastardo in hand, so we'll see if he decides to use it on the Sanji, and he does. And we see an 8k swing with the Kairos. And then Ben concedes because he knows he doesn't have the counter to stop the Orlumbus attack. But yeah, that was a pretty good showcase. Very drawn out match, which typically is going to be the case between these two decks. I think that both players did play at a good pace. I think we timed it and they did go 2-time, but Fernando was able to win on board rather than rely on any overtime rules. But yeah, that was a really good match between these two decks. I think that the key moment in this matchup could have gone either way when Ben was able to go down to 0 life but then add 2 life with the Yamato and leader ability. That could have been a key moment for Ben, but the answer that Fernando had to that play, being able to use all of the combos in his hand, the Orlumbus, the Bastardo, to get rid of the Yamato, was really key to Fernando pulling out this victory. But yeah, I really enjoyed going through this match. It's definitely an interesting match of really just going back and forth and managing your resources. But yeah, that's all I have for this one. Give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and let me know what you think about Queen and Rebecca in the comments section below. Consider subscribing for more One Piece card game content, and I'll see you all in the next video.